Jenny-Jaymes and our sidekick, Christian Cano, partner in crime, is coming up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen's sidekick. Welcome to Two Queers in a Truck. Hi y'all.
See you soon. Good morning, everybody. It is Two Queers in a Truck time. Our dance or classic music, from the, I guess this is probably 1970s somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's old. Teach about old school. That's old school.
Old school club music, and probably some bell bottoms and some velour tracksuits and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, this is Two Queers in a Truck. It is the second Wednesday of September 7th already. Time flies when you're having fun.
That's right.
We are pushing into the fall season, and life is getting pretty interesting in 2023, and we're definitely starting to see things take shape. Not that I actually don't even have a section on today's deal about presidential politics. In fact, I think it's one of the first shows I've done in a while that I'm not doing anything on Trump. Or
my goodness. What's going on with that?
Well, there's so many other funnier things than those two clowns. And, I think also, too, and we'll go right into the first topic, but I think Trump's almost becoming a foregone conclusion. The people are starting to, even Republicans are starting to, they've turned on him a long time ago, but you're starting to see Chris Christie. There's little cracks there where he used to be a never Trumper, and then he flipped over and started polishing Trump's knob. And then now he's gone back to, hey, I told you all along he was a problem, just and kind of matadoring the fact that he carried water for Trump for 6 or 7 years. But don't worry about that. That was a different Chris Christie. That was an optical illusion. Don't worry about the guy behind the curtain, pulling all the levers. But I think we're going to start to see that. I think when his Georgia trial kicks in, and I think there's going to be a deal before that. I mean, because the other indictees that also could go away for a long time, and some of them are pretty old, are already turning on him. They're already going, he's not helping us with legal fees, blah, blah, blah. I feel like they're all going to cut deals.
Yeah. They're
all going to make this really quick work of this trial. I don't know if it'll ever even go to trial. I think Georgia will probably, when it all comes down, I think they'll get him to sign off that he'll never run for office again. He clearly violated the 14th. And I think the state of Georgia will put him on some kind of extended double top secret probation. And they'll get to accomplish what they want to accomplish, which is hold him accountable and keep him from running for president, and then he can just pull out of the race and let the Republicans slog it out. Because I think those other 19 people who got indicted are all going to cut a deal and say, we'll lay it out there. We got the receipts. We'll give them to you. We'll cooperate. And they'll go, okay, we'll hold up your trial for his, and if you help us take him down, then we'll help you out. Prosecutors do that a lot. So that wouldn't be the first time a prosecutor office has ever done that, but I think it's going to get interesting. Trump is, even according to the Palmer report and several other things, are saying he's done. He's people haven't completely wrapped their minds around it, but for all intents and purposes, he's in what they'd say deep doo doo. The first topic, this has to do with the typical Republican hypocrisy. Big socialist Ron DeSantis is giving out some big old green queen checks to homeschool families. A bill that he signed into law in the spring gives $8,000 cash vouchers to families out of the state public school fund to pay these families for quote unquote supplies. $8,000 to homeschool your kid. And, because they're trying to privatize schools and defund public schools, so why not give away money to predominantly conservative families? Because Biden's the only one that buys votes, right? And so it's amazing how quickly they love socialism when it goes to the good people or the right people. But this is the thing, is it's biting them in the ass. A news service called Popular Information, which is a progressive news service and online blog, has screenshots of people talking on different platforms about what they're doing with their $8,000 welfare check they got from the public schools. And it's pretty amazing. They're buying like Disney season passes, big screen TVs, PlayStation 5s. One mom said, well, now with this first check, I can go out and get the $800 Lego set that my kids want and get it for Christmas and put it away. All these, I'm talking about frivolous things, and just dozens of moms going on these different homeschool blogs, regular blogs, Reddit. I mean, it's a whole, they've got dozens upon dozens of people just openly saying they're taking that Florida public school welfare check and going and spending on basically whatever the fuck they want. And, a few of them are buying laptops and things like that are kind of school related. But in the same breath, they'll go, well, yeah, but I also got, a kid's a PlayStation 5. And I'm going, what kind of school supplies is that? They're getting universal season passes because they live locally. But these are expensive things because, if it's a family of 4 or 5, I don't know what the season passes cost, but I'm assuming they're pretty pricey because you can go unlimited for a whole year. They're probably adding up to $1,000 or a couple $1,000 or whatever the in-state residence pass is. But again, what does that have to do with reading, writing, arithmetic? And I find it funny because these families are typically Christian, they're typically evangelical, they're typically along the lines of Moms for Liberty type people. My rights, most of the families, the reason they went into homeschooling was the anti-vax movement, which started way before COVID.
Yeah.
And I knew some families like this back in Missouri. Now, they went on for religious reasons, but the other reason was a lot of them were entertainers, and they traveled during the winter, and they didn't want to pull their kids out of school and then check them back in. And so they just went to homeschooling while they were young, like in elementary school and all the way up to about middle school age. And this, we probably should put them back in. Of course, they were grossly unprepared to go back to school because, these parents were teachers. And it's typically families that are typically undisciplined anyway. Proof by the spending habits of these people getting these $8,000 educational vouchers is they're literally spending it like a kid would, and it just shows the immaturity and irresponsibility, not only of that movement, but their mindset But yet, if we hand out food, for example, and do food stamps, oh, we got to make sure they're working. We got to make sure, those inner city urban people aren't mooching off the state. The typical racist road of, oh, it's usually a fatherless family. They've got no real morals. They're not very responsible. It's like $200 worth of food stamps that we give them.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure they're not buying crack cocaine with it, even though they're not getting cash and they can't run that EBT card, at a crack dealer's. But they're going out and buying vacationing stuff and PlayStations with an $8,000 educational voucher.
Mm-hmm.
When Florida is also 48th in the nation in teacher pay.
Yeah.
So they can light $100 bills on fire. Again, if it goes to conservative evangelical families that Casey DeSantis approves of. For people who don't know, that's the governor's wife that kind of has Groucho Marx eyebrows. It looks like a painted clown most of the time, and obviously picks out his white boots for him. But I think it's just dripping with irony. Even now, when we're talking about the next budget and how the Republicans in the House are trying to hold up the next budget and holding up Senate appointments for military officers and promotions and doing all this extortion, literally extortion, over quote unquote worries about the budget. Yet we see Ron DeSantis giving away money like he's Oprah, going, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a voucher, I get a voucher. You can buy all the PlayStations you want. I don't care. There's no consequence. There's no rules. There's no clawback. There's no accountability. They don't have to show what they spend it on, which was the big thing for a long time about means-tested social programs. Same group of people that want to cut Medicare, same people that want to cut Social Security, same people, blah, blah, blah. We don't have any money. We are broke. Yeah, we're not broke.
Mm-hmm.
Same people that took out PPP loans, and I'm fine with all that. But it's funny how they pick and choose the socialism they like. There must be good socialism and bad socialism.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the end of our first topic. Second one is interesting. There is a EOC lawsuit coming out of Texas for employees of color. Are suing a company called T&T Crane and Rigging. And so they're a construction company of some type. And 4 Black employees are suing for abusive language, rampant use of the N-word. If you don't like it, you can take your blah, blah, blah ass off the work site. Shouldn't be so sensitive. Many of the trucks on there have bumper stickers with symbols of nooses, like hanging nooses, hanging people, and specific colored lightning bolts that are signs of white supremacy. Very, very hostile, anti-Black, very racist workplace. Not shocked that this is happening in Texas. It's kind of the norm, especially in the construction, oil field, that sort of thing. You see a lot of that there. I know with family that worked in the oil field, it tend to be pretty racist. But the big deal, very controversial. It's a good sized company that's getting sued. And again, it's going back to this Florida, Texas, just this crazy dystopian disconnect with the 21st century. that this kind of stuff would even exist in a large company. It's not shocking where it's happening, and you can't help but not see the pattern. In a rush to strip people out of their medical rights and medical access and everything else. There's also the same state that tolerates this. The same state is handing out $8,000 checks like they're going to be able to stop printing checks pretty soon. It's just very bizarre. It's two of the big shining states for the Republican Party that are just constantly. This is just the social norm. It just seems very acceptable by the white-dominated Republican Party, and just a sign of the times that they just haven't moved on. That they find this kind of stuff acceptable. That if I own that company, I never would own or run a company that would have those kind of practices, and I wouldn't set up an environment that would even think that was okay. And you've been in management in your career, and I've been in management in my career. The upper management has to be okay with that for it to happen that rapidly.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not like one day all of a sudden everybody becomes super racist.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in some kind of weird one-off thing. All of a sudden it's like Klan meetings or something. I mean, that culture has to be green lighted by somebody and say, yeah, it's okay. Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Klansmen will be Klansmen. I mean, you can have one-off problems. You could have a weird thing in the lunchroom happen or something. I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but you kind of sow the culture. It's like when you worked in a hotel business, and if you had a problem, the first thing you did is you went to the people that were involved with the problem, and you worked it out that day, or at least started on it. But I find it funny when this happens for years. They go, I don't know what they're talking about. But no, yeah, you have to. I mean, hey, the water cooler talk. I don't know if you want to weigh in on any of the first two topics, real quick.
Yeah, I mean, the one you were talking about the checks that were being given out. I feel like we are in a time and place, a very unique time and place in America, that those who have been called out as hypocrites, like we're talking about now, need to be held accountable. Because if we don't hold them accountable for what they're doing, they will continue to repeat the cycle. So we as in people who are running against these people, we have to highlight the fact that they are the new welfare queens. And we can't be ashamed. We can't be afraid to hurt their feelings. We can't be afraid, because at the end of the day, they have spent their lives calling black and brown people, mainly black and brown people, but impoverished people, marginalized people, welfare queens, the takers. And we have, and psychologically, that really has a very big impact with people in the middle, because as you always mention, at the end of the day, conservatives don't like other people taking money, but they like to take money. It's just who takes the money. So we do have to highlight that, like you're talking about. We do have to say charter school, and I know we've talked about this on the other show, but charter school parents, voucher school parents, and these homeschool parents are today's new welfare queens. They're the ones that want all the handouts. And we don't. And you haven't even talked about the double dipping they're doing in taxes, because not only are they getting $8,000 a year, but they're also taking the deductions in taxes for buying these things as well. So they're basically double dipping. And if it's exactly what you said. Sorry, Jen, but when you have someone who has a lot of teachers in my family, they spend a lot of their own personal money buying supplies. This money should go to them. So,
100%.
Yeah.
We're up against our first break, and I
Yep.
want to touch on that a little bit because the article that I took this from said exactly that.
Yeah.
That the biggest cut of all is what is happening with teachers in Florida. But we're up against our first break, and we'll be right back with some more Two Queers in a Truck. Hey, everybody, you can catch us on your favorite audio podcast platform, Spotify, and all Apple Store, the Google machine, and whoever else does podcasts. We're on there. We broke in, and we're staying there. So enjoy the Two Queers in a Truck on your favorite audio podcast platform. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye-bye. Happy Pride.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching us on Two Queers in a Truck. Don't forget, you can watch us anytime at your leisure on our video podcast platforms like Facebook and YouTube. But you can also listen to us, either this show or any of our past shows, on our audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and all of the other ones. So once again, thank you for watching Two Queers in a Truck. I hope you enjoy our show.
And we are back. And that is the absolute fucking truth. And it's one of the reasons I mentioned how lowly paid Florida teachers are. And incidentally, they also have a massive teacher shortage in Florida, just like we do here in North Carolina, because again, it's a Republican-controlled state. We have a supermajority. They have a supermajority and a Republican governor that will, on one hand, be short teachers, so much so that if you're a military veteran, you can just apply for the job. You don't have to have a certification. You don't have to have a degree in education. You don't even have to have a certain amount of college hours. Your only qualification is you served in the military and can document it. And you can become a teacher in Florida, and be able to walk right into a classroom right off the fucking street and be teaching third graders or sixth graders and be completely unqualified. But according to the state of Florida, this is a good solution. And the second and the most important thing that the article said is not only are Florida teachers lowly paid, but just like teachers all across America that have had to face the defunding of public schools. Also, with the defunding means that the school doesn't buy the typical minimum supplies that schools used to buy to keep into the classroom. And now teachers and sometimes parents of public school students have to supplement the public school system because tax dollars are being misused in other ways. And this is a prime example why you shouldn't privatize schools. This is if there isn't a better argument for why Florida is rushing headlong into privatization of a social program. Socialism for rich corporations, deep-pocketed nonprofits, like the former Secretary of Education, DeVos, that's pushing this national agenda that funds the Moms for Liberty terror group, that is pushing this privatization of the school system and demonizing public schools that we're even seeing here locally in Charlotte, North Carolina. They're all for these vouchers because it defunds public schools. It takes public money, socialism, and hands it to private citizens without any vetting whatsoever. And then you got teachers making some of the lowest pay in the nation buying school supplies to operate in their public school classroom and making typically barely, and many of them don't even make enough to live on. They barely make more than what people would make at Target. And I'm not knocking Target employees, but I'm saying you're wanting people to educate your kids to go and have to work a second job when they get off teaching. And also buy stuff with their own money that they don't have. But yeah, $8,000 for PlayStations and Disney season passes, vacations, and big screen TVs is perfectly acceptable. School supplies with $8,000 cash that they're getting, and big old welfare queen paychecks. Pretty amazing. To families, like you said, that don't need it.
Yeah.
There is a Florida church. Florida's really making the news lately. A church called Christ Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, Jacksonville, Florida. A guy named Daryl Gilliard, that's also a registered sex offender.
Oh my!
That's been a long-term pastor of this church, had to make a choice: either ban the kids and not allow the kids to attend the church, make it an adults-only church, or get a new pastor that's not a pedophile and not a registered sex offender. They chose the pastor, the sex offender, got rid of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And shocking, one, because Baptist churches are some of the most famous for recruiting families with kids, and, you know, having kids of the members recruit other kids with pizza parties, skating parties.
Exactly. That's the biggest. What do you call it? That's the biggest
scam.
The biggest scam in America.
It's part of their biggest Ponzi scheme. You know, churches are Ponzi schemes anyway. They're just scams.
Yeah.
But this goes to prove it. Same group of people that rail against kids, you know, seeking medical attention for gender affirming care. Oh, it's about the kids. It's about the kids. Oh, we're anti-trafficking. We got a registered sex offender, and they pick the sex offender over the kids.
Yeah.
It's just like some of these stories today that we're highlighting. It's like 2,000 pounds of hypocrisy.
Jenny, do you think the people that you know, you and I pick up on these because well, for many reasons, but mainly because we're kind of like our eyes and our ears and our and we always, when these pop up on our feeds, so to speak, we look at these because of the attacks that have been happening over the last couple of years on us. You know what I mean? And so we, yeah. And so, you know, we pick those things up. So, you know, you talk about how you follow someone on Twitter or one of the social media that they try to highlight a lot of these kind of things, you know, whether it's pedophiles or groomers that actually get arrested, you know, the ones that are actually being arrested, the sex rings that are being busted. So
there's 3 women I follow that they're compiling a long-running list. They're actually cataloging this. Now, this particular story did not. So that story and the voucher story, neither one of those came from those ladies.
Okay.
So what interesting thing, and I'm going to riff off what you just said. For the longest, it's been certain specific social justice warriors that have been highlighting this.
Okay.
They're picking quite the audience. Other people are picking up what they were putting down.
Okay.
And there's certain more mainstream things that are starting to follow these people.
Yeah.
And I love it because both of these stories are the story I'm about to talk to on subject number 4 that's also in the same vein. And this one's really, really on it. It also is the state of Florida as well. Didn't say I wouldn't pick on state of Florida today. I mean, you know, Texas and Florida, all the kookiness right now.
Exactly. The jokes write themselves.
Yeah, I don't even have to make some of this shit up. Like, some of it's just like you watch the video clip where you just go, these stories are starting to sound like stuff that like even the Onion might shut down because they're going, the stuff that we make up for fun isn't as crazy as the real live news now. But to get back to your point, there's not only a lot of social justice warriors that are picking on these specific subjects, whether it's errant spending or these 3 ladies that track these pedophiles, and every time with the hashtag not drag, not trans.
Yeah.
or a Jeff Tiedrich that is constantly pointing out the hypocrisy of MAGA, the MAGA nation, and the many other people that are saying, we're not going to let this die.
Yeah.
We're not going to swept under the rug. We're keeping it in the news cycle. We're keeping it in the Twitter feed. We're keeping it in the social media scope. We write blogs about it. Robert Reich the same way. All these people are constantly making sure it doesn't go away.
Sure.
That it isn't old Reagan or Nixon. Reagan's got Alzheimer's. He's going to the great beyond anyway. Why pick on him? Why kick him down? Well, we're not kicking him while he's down. Yeah, we know he's going to die soon. Point is to highlight what he did. Make sure we don't forget about it, so that we don't end up electing another person like that.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of teaching modern history, not letting things go, prosecuting somebody like Trump, is if we let it go, kind of like we did at the end of the Civil War, the black people in the South that were former slaves are still going to fight a miserable, brutal fight for another 100 years, like what happened. I mean, they didn't get any legit civil rights till 100 years after the Civil War. Multiple generations were born and died during that time period, where they didn't really have much more freedom than when they were slaves. It probably was actually worse in some ways, because you're sitting there going, I think we got our freedom, but it doesn't feel like it, and they're still kicking us around. They're still treating us like second-class citizens. We're still not accessing the American dream like their white counterparts are. And, it's just brutal. But the fourth subject is a topic that somebody brought up about a place called the Miracle Village in Florida. It is a encampment bought by and run by a group called the Matthew 25 Ministry. And it is a village full of sex offenders, formerly incarcerated sex offenders, that they kicked families out with kids so they could bring them here. And one, it's a church ministry. Go figure. Second, it's kind of like I don't know if you'd call it a halfway house or a housing development, but it was formerly like low-income housing. It's a very rural part of Florida, a lot of poor people. It used to be the grounds of a former sugar processing plant, because Florida used to have a lot of sugar plantations, and of course, a lot of that shipped over to Central America and the Caribbean and that sort of thing, because a lot of Americans just don't want to sit there and chop sugarcane, for a living and process sugarcane, because, the Mexicans are taking all of our jobs. Yeah. And, God forbid you have to go out there and chop sugarcane. And that's the end of our second, we're up against our second break. I will be right back with some more Two Queers in a Truck. Hey, thanks for watching Two Queers in a Truck, and Christian and I just blathering on about craziness in the world today. Y'all be safe out there. There is a lot of Republicans on the road.
That's right.
Have a good week out there.
Bye.
But again, it's the pedophile LGBT people and the drag queens. And that's what you got to always worry about, is churches are literally openly harboring sex offenders, booting kids out, building villages and maintaining a village. They called the Miracle Village. And when I first saw it, the person that wrote the article and was highlighting it didn't even, go in depth on it. But I simply Googled it and screenshotted the article and then attached it to the deal and said, well, it goes a little deeper than this, and here's the really offensive part. Like, you thought that was offensive. Well, check this out. They're like, wow. And it's one of those things that you just go, wow. But yeah, I think to your overall point, we do train ourselves to look for this stuff because we have been barraged. We have been abused for so long as openly LGBT people. And because we have this platform, our 2 podcast platforms,
Mm-hmm.
it's our way of fighting back. It's our way of educating the public. And I think that's one of the reasons people listen and watch our shows is because, hey, we're highlighting, if they're going to sit there and give false testimony in state hearings over anti-trans bills and don't say gay and all this other crap that they make up in their heads, is the hair on fire issue of the day. Mm-hmm. I'm going to point out they're handing out $8,000 welfare checks to middle class and wealthy families to go buy school supplies like PlayStations. I'm going to point out that their own church Give to the Greasy Ponzi scheme ministries and churches and all that are literally harboring pedophiles and sex offenders.
Yeah.
Like a Jason Boebert.
I guess, Jen, I guess, I can share a little bit of my frustration more on your show than I can on the other show, just because of the way the platform is. But I guess one of my biggest angst, one of my biggest angry things about this stuff that's been going on is some of the people that are on my side of the political spectrum who don't highlight these things. So when all of these states, very, very few times do we see an elected public service, a servant, and usually it's a state senator, a lone wolf Democrat, or someone who stands up and says, hey, listen, trans people aren't the pedophiles. Drag queens aren't the pedophiles. If you really want to talk about pedophiles, let's talk about Catholic priests. Let's talk about, the data, you know what I mean? And so I'm not saying that I expect them to say this, to share the same information that we share, because we're on top of it a little bit more, but just share the facts, So I am kind of concerned that all the people who are in North Carolina, Congress people, who are Democrats, House members, state Senate, I have not seen one of them in the newspaper or at any of the forums that you and I have ever gone to that said, listen, we need to share people the facts. Are people running for school board? If you're concerned about grooming Moms for Liberty, let's talk about what the FBI is saying.
Yeah.
People like your husbands are the ones that are more likely to groom than a gay teen. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's what I don't understand, why they don't say that.
Well, I think, I'll flat out say it. The Democratic Party, especially when it comes to LGBT issues, is happy to march in pride.
Yeah.
Happy to take photo ops at fundraisers. But just like the deadbeat date that sits there and can't find their wallet and is patting themselves around like, ooh, I must have had my other smoking jacket, or my other car. It's like all of a sudden it's like a now you see me, now you don't disappearing act.
Yeah.
Now, I will say when I've testified at these hearings, especially the one in Texas, when they tried to do a bathroom bill, I will say that Senate committee was packed with all Republicans except for one Democrat. And he was an older Latino that I don't think was like the big trans ally or an LGBT ally. I don't think he really cared, but he was the token Democrat on that committee, and the rest were all Republicans.
Sure.
And so the tone and tenor of the questions really changed depending on whether they were for the anti-LGBT or against it. And even if there was an ally up on, or an LGBT member up on the committee, the few times a public official was either testifying and speaking out against the bill, and or the few times a Democrat kind of questioned what was going on in the hearing, the Republicans all but just squashed the discussion, just squashed it and moved on, and just railroaded them. And that's is when we get in states where the legislature is so dominated by one party rule. North Carolina, i.e., North Carolina, Texas, and Florida, where it's Republican. There's nothing a Democrat can do. And where they're just sitting there and going, well, they can even override the governor now in this state with the supermajority. Nothing, the Democrat can't go out to the press. And here's where the issue is, and I think this is what's speaking to what you just said.
Yeah.
Is it okay? We got to fight this fight differently.
Yes.
I've got to try this case in the court of public opinion.
Yes, like they do.
And even if I have to flip around and spaz out like an impotent jerk, at least I'm on the right side of history. And I took a stand. And I made the news in a positive way and pointed out the hypocrisy. Amazingly, on LGBT issues, you don't see Democrats unless they're LGBT. But if the straight allies do not help us, it sounds like it's just another LGBT person getting upset. And the history, and they make it out to be histrionics and drama. And I see, this is why we can't trust the gays, is because look at them being big old drama queens, blah, blah, blah. They reduce us down to a trope or a joke, the butt of a joke, another joke, because we don't have our straight allies speaking up loudly enough, and they let it go for political convenience and getting some pet project through that they want and making another compromised decision on human rights. Kind of like abortion. I mean, we're seeing a lot of Democrats bend on that too. I did want to end this show. The fifth topic was kind of weak anyway. It was kind of funny. It was about a pastor at this little Greg Locke convention thing that was talking about bestiality, and got really, really, the minute and a half clip that I saw, it got really, really bizarre how he witnessed him trying to get the demons out of this mom and two daughters that dreamed about bestiality, and their grandfather he dabbled into bestiality. And then the pastor went on to describe as he was pushing the demons out of the three women, they also ended up having sex with animals too, right in front of them.
Oh my.
And this was an audience of adults and kids at this super conservative thing, and you're like, I don't know where he's going, but I really don't want to hear the end of that sermon.
Yeah.
And you're going, but again, the LGBT people are the groomers. But I really want to cover this subject because it's been several years in the making. I don't want to fucking laugh about it. Big old Queen Enrique Tarrio, or
yes,
his name, 22 years in the slammer.
22 years.
Motherfucker deserves it.
He's gonna have a lot of time to meet some friends. He's gonna meet the real Proud Boys.
Yeah, we're gonna find out how much pride's in him. Or
exactly.
Pride in him.
Yeah.
What are these incel weirdo bro down low gay types? And nothing serves more justice as to see this chuckle fuck go to prison for 22 years.
Yeah.
Nothing made me more joyous than to see all their leadership going to prison over the January 6th. I really thought the leaders of that ought to got the death penalty, because that's what you should get for storming the Capitol and trying to change an election. It should be, they should line them up in a square and pat, 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 firing squad. Let me tell you, the find out part would have a whole new meaning. Couple decades in prison's decent, even though I thought he should get life. 1,100 conspiracy counts and counting should throw you under the prison. And all of his other buddies got like 17 years, 18 years. And a couple of things I have to say about this. One is all the people that were super impatient and bitched about, they're going to prosecute all these people. I'm like, wow, that's 1,100 trials.
Yeah.
The fact that they've done it in about a year and some change, not only investigated it, gathered all the evidence, and this is the largest set of trials in American history. Like, there's nothing even close to the scope of the January 6th investigations, going all the way up to the former president.
Hey, Jen, do you think that Biden needs to, really for political reasons, that Biden needs to really coat his record on this a lot more? Because if you remember the last couple of years, ever since January 6th, one of the main things that I've ever heard Barbara say is, I hope they're held accountable. I hope they're sent to jail. She said that several times on our other show. And this is one of those things that people like her need to know. Listen, they did this, what they did over the last, since January 6th, they have done an incredible, miraculous job of putting these people in, holding them accountable.
Yeah, the Justice Department has, for as much heat as Merrick Garland and all of his team have just gotten hammered over this.
Yeah.
Oh, they've been so slow. Because people are just that way. They're mildly stupid and impatient. And it's not like it's a trial over shoplifting or something from Walmart, where they stole $5 worth of PlayStations or something. This is a very complex case. And people think open and shut. We saw it on TV and there's tons of footage. I go, because there is 3.5 million pieces of evidence involved with this trial. The fact that over 1,100 people are either sitting in jail, have already been, and the majority of them have already been convicted and sentenced and everything else. And also, this has a lot to do with what they're going to do to public officials.
Yeah.
Just like with Watergate, they took the bottom of the pyramid and worked their way up. Doing the same playbook is that they got to get all the minions first and sweat them a little bit and say, well, okay, well, Enrique, we may be able to shorten your time a little bit if you give us the 5 House members that also helped you.
Yeah.
Like, need your cooperation. But you got to prosecute them and sentence them first, put them in prison, make them miserable, just like several of the Oath Keepers are saying from prison. Hey, this is really miserable. My fellow cell block members are throwing piss on me and throwing feces, they're throwing poop on them, because even people in prison have got standards and are going, yeah, you're a traitor and an asshole. You try to take down our democracy. We still live in this society, even though we're in prison right now. But we think you're a bigger piece of shit than us. And just like prison's not a real fun place for pedophiles and sex offenders, right? Traitors to our country, believe it or not, there's a lot of people in prison that were former military. There's a lot of patriots that live in prison and incarceration right now because they got caught with 5 pounds worth of weed, know, and they're now serving time and things like that. So yeah, you got to start with the small fish that catch the big whales, like Trump. Not making a weight joke there, but you know, I mean, he's the big prize. He's the prize of this massive case. Is, you know, they want to take the MTGs, the Matt Gateses, everybody else that's on the elected official deal. But you got to take all the minions, all the foot soldiers, all the way up to the leadership of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys first to build that kind of a case where you set that down in front of them and go, here's the deal.
Yeah.
We can indict you. We got the roadmap. We got you by the short and curlies. You're done. This is what we're proposing. You can get with your lawyer or, you know, have your lawyer present when we make this offer. But you got 3 days to make a decision. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, hey, we're going to need your passport, by the way, too, just in case.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's one of these situations where I think the glossier, and it's one of the reasons they put off Trump's January 6th trial till next year, because they've got to get all these ducks in a row. And it's kind of like dominoes. When somebody lines up 20,000 dominoes, you got to make sure the first few go down right, you know, or otherwise by number 19,543, you might have a problem. And so they're doing it right. They're doing everything. They've done it extraordinarily. It's a modern textbook. They'll be talking about this 20 years later in law school on how immaculate the Justice Department has run this case. This is probably the most complicated trials ever in world history, other than maybe the Nuremberg trials, the war trials after World War II. Maybe was the only thing that would even rival this. And one where actually the progressive side is doing this right. Americans are being done right by making sure this is prosecuted the right way and not tried in the media. They've done this very methodically, very quietly, and they I think they've done a perfect job. And I told people a couple years ago, I was like, you got to be patient. I mean, like, this is not again, it's not a simple case from the size and the scope of it. The fact that now you're talking about 1,100 plus people who have been processed in some form or fashion on some level. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. This is just one case. This is it's not all the FBI does. They're still prosecuting companies that dump chemicals in our water system. They're still doing, Wall Street investigations and terrorist threats and bomb threats and doing all the things that the FBI does and the Justice Department does. And so it's not like all the other things that the functions they do in our justice system just stopped to let them go ahead and prosecute these people. Is that they're doing this plus all that other work that they normally do. And that's why they've hired special prosecutors and they've hired these special teams. And like the guy that went on 60 Minutes was a former Republican that was burned by MAGA that also has an intelligence background that's doing the intelligence gathering. They're hiring high-level consultants to make sure not only is this done right and correctly and by the book, but also serves the American people, because the American people do want justice, including independents, including Republicans. This is a bipartisan investigation. We have Republicans and sitting Republicans and Republican judges. They're on the bench. The guy, so this is not a one-sided witch hunt like Trump wants to make it sound. This is legit. This is, the Georgia case and many of the other cases. A lot of these are Republicans that are deciding this and prosecuting this. And so I love the fact that they try to gloss it as something that it's not. And Merrick Garland just smiles and keeps on doing his job. Doesn't get into the political right. And ultimately, this is how you end a movement like MAGA. This is how you end Nazism. This is how you end the Confederacy and slavery. And this is how you restore civil rights and justice. Our society is to do the work. And ultimately, nothing's funnier than seeing Enrique Tarrio's face as he's being let out in cuffs and going to prison for 2 decades. And it breaks me great joy that big old queen's going to prison. And he gets to find out the new meaning of proud. And when the lights go out, he's going to get himself a new husband. But anyway, that is all we have of the show. And we're going to rock it out on our way out. Bye, baby.
Bye, boo.
Watch.
See you next week.
See you next week.